Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, how dare you? Then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon, and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon, crypto, and thanks button in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and X. Now we are joined by Original D-Rose, Refracted Curvature, Neil, 10th Man, Eli, Arwin, and a whole bunch of people in Discord, so welcome one and all.
Hello, good afternoon.
All right.
Let's get it on!
Get what on? What's going on?
I don't know.
Because you didn't join for the pre-show. So in the pre-show, we were talking about science and the scientific method, how it proves things, and so on and so forth. In advance of my
It's the
discussion,
year of the
hopefully.
peacemaking.
Well, I just had a bunch of newbies in my chat today and basically did a full flat earth intro with the 3 undefeatable arguments. That was great.
Oh, well, that's wonderful. I mean, it's nice to know about your intro and my intro. There we go. Good to know. Let's do a bit of housekeeping. Let's do a bit of housekeeping to get you all in line. Any evidence of a physical geometric sphere edge? That's a horizon, formerly known as Earth curve.
Black Swan.
Is that scientific evidence?
Nope.
What do you
Geometric.
mean formally? Hold on. What do you mean formally?
Well,
Because to them, it's
refraction.
the Earth.
They never claimed it was geometric. It's not formally.
Formally, because they used to claim that it blocked boats and buildings, it's still the official Earth curve claim of a geometric hill obstruction known as Earth curve getting in the way at the horizon. That's the official claim. But since, as already highlighted by Arwin, Black Swan, now they tell us nobody's expecting to see the geometric horizon. That's Earth curve. We wouldn't expect to see physical geometry. That's Earth curve.
Right. They don't see the geometric horizon, but boats will still go over and behind it.
No, they're going over refraction. Just told you. Refraction. That's what they actually say. Well, that's not Earth curve, is it? They're saying boats go into refraction. Okay, no. You used to say there's a physical hill blocking the view of the boat. Now, it's formally known as Earth curve. Hope that's clear.
What's clear is they used to say horizon was Earth curve, geometric blocking. And now they have to say, because of the Black Swan, well, no, you can really never see it. So then what was blocking? Oh,
Nothing.
Refraction. So not Earth curve then.
Yeah.
That's how simple it is.
The claim is there's a physical hill getting in the way based on us being on a sphere. Well, that physical hill has been debunked. Now they tell us it's refraction. It's that simple. Okay. Any scientific evidence of gravity?
What is it?
Well, how would science doesn't prove things, is what I'm told by many people. Why would you ask for such a thing if science doesn't prove things?
I'm only asking based on the standards that are told to us when being told that there is proof of evidence. We were told that there's scientific evidence for gravity and that the whole body of science proves we're on a sphere. So we were presented with the notion of there being scientific evidence for this model of a sphere in a heliocentric, sun-centric world.
Well,
Why are we
if this
asking for
is
scientific evidence is your question, John. We're asking for scientific evidence because we're told there's science for this stuff. So when someone says there's science for it, or I can prove that scientifically, we say, okay, go on then. And they go, what? You go, you say you can prove that scientifically. Go on then. Let's see how you prove it scientifically. What did you do? What was the method? What did you do to prove it scientifically? And suddenly we get told that they're richer than we are. That they've got a better car, or more popularity, or more viewers. You go, no, you said you could prove it scientifically. Now I'm asking you to do just that. Was it just a magic word that you used to allude to having proof when you don't actually know what the word means? Yeah, it was. It's just the typical con artist ball-believing move to convince you that they've got some proof for the shit that they claim. No, you haven't got any proof for your gravity. So you saying you've got scientific evidence for it will just be met with me asking you to actually give it us. Or start by defining what science is, so we all know what scientific evidence will be, so when you present it, we'll know that it is what you say it is. And if you can't, we're going to wonder why you've used the word, why you've said science, why you've said you're proving things, when you don't really know what the word actually means. You've just used it because it convinces people who hear it that you've proven something. That's why it's used by our opponents, because they need to con their viewers and lie and scam their viewers into believing that the bullshit they peddle has actually got some proof attached to it. Now, they don't, half the time, even know what science means. So when they say they've got science, they, in their minds, think they have. They haven't. It's that simple.
Well, you know,
that's why we ask for it.
That's a double-edged sword.
Why?
Indeed, it's a double-edged sword because they have said gravity's not a force. 107 years ago, it was. 107 years later, and for that length of time, it isn't. But they claimed science proved gravity. They never showed it prior to changing it from being a force to a non-force. So this is where people will say, see, they thought that gravity was a force, and science told them that. But then later, science told them it wasn't a force. Look, wake up, everybody. They never used scientific method in the first place. Gravity is a hoax. Something drops doesn't mean gravity is there.
Like a helium balloon or clouds.
Right. Well, the reason I say it's a double-edged sword is because if you recognize that they're that what they're calling science isn't proof, like proof at all, you can come to the conclusion that science is not proving things, and that can, that can hurt you as well if you come to that conclusion.
But precisely, that's where Jaron's at. So in that position, Jaron's 99% of the way, because he's already recognised that this word science, which he assumes is science, is being used to peddle deception, lies, fraud, scams, things that are not true, not proven. So when Jaron says, oh, science isn't proving anything, it's because so many people claiming to have science aren't proving anything and just don't actually have science. But you can understand how that would, on the surface level, seem like, well, everybody who's saying they've got science is claiming to be proving things, and they're not. I can show how they're wrong. Therefore, science doesn't prove anything. Well, no, the only reason they were saying they'd got science was to steal the valour of the method that's empirical, because that does prove things. They hadn't, so they just used the word to make you think that they had. It's that simple. So while I won't necessarily go through that with Jaron when I'm talking with him hopefully tomorrow, my intention will be to just explain how the logic of the method, that's hypothesis construction, not the physicality of the independent or dependent variable, no examples of boiling water, but simply the logic therein. The logic of if A, then B, or if A, not B. You can't have both be true. It violates the law of non-contradiction, and the only way you find out which one is true is to vary A, and it'll either cause B or not cause B. In which case you can...
That's why I bring it up.
Say again.
That's why I bring it up, because where he has addressed you as a scammer for using science, right, or saying scientific method proves things, you could use that as your way in to showing him how the method actually does prove things, and just kind of walking down the path he's already gone down, that these people that say science aren't proving things, but why are they saying it? And then show them why they're saying it with your...
No, I'm not. My attempts won't be that lofty either. Simple. My attempt is, here's the logic and why it offers empiricism. Here is the infallible logic and how it works. That's it. That's the only thing I want to achieve. Baby steps. I've already done the try and incorporate all of the scientific method with examples of experiments that are being used by Bob Nodell in the form of Mickelson and Morley, and how they're not experiments because they don't adhere to the method, they don't have an independent and dependent variable. Even if they did, they'd be showing our Coriolis doesn't show we've got Earth drifting underneath at 15 degrees an hour, because if the Earth did turn under the gyro to cause, pendulum, or whatever, to cause the drift at 15 degrees an hour, then Earth would be turning underneath planes. And that's what I tried to do with Globebusters. Right, let's just take a big step back and go, no. Let's start from the beginning. What's the issue? Okay. Based on every single shyster charlatan claiming they got science when they haven't, Jaron's under the misapprehension that pseudoscience, which is what it actually is, doesn't prove things. That I shouldn't have said misapprehension. Under the apprehension, because he's correct in that regard, he's just got the word wrong. Because science does prove things. The pseudoscience he's been exposed to all his life, masquerading as science, does not. Once that distinction's drawn, my hope is that it can be drawn by the empiricism offered within the logic. If A, then B, or if A, not B, is a logic gate. Something that you could put into a computer and then feed it the variable, the thing that will vary to cause the effect that you are induced, or not cause the effect. And upon doing it, it travels through the logic seamlessly, perfectly. At that point, how can you argue? How can Jaron argue with the logic embedded in the hypothesis? You can't. It's logic. Yeah? Suitable for dumb-ass computers to wrap their heads around. No thought required. A process. a binary, idiotic computer could comport to. That's what I'm going to stick to. When I said it to yesterday, QE's response was, what, second grade level? Unfortunately, if you want to put it in that way, yes. But through 30 or 40 years of brainwashing, indoctrination, and shyster liars claiming they got science when they haven't, it's easy to understand why you fall off the beaten track of that second grade education that you understood to realise why it would be useful to claim you got science when you haven't. Because it proves things. Hopefully that'll be next step. First step, here's how the logic works. If he says, that's wrong, okay, that exposes you to your audience as being stupid then. Because there's no arguing with this logic. It is infallible. It's sound. It's logical. It's consistent. It's a method. There's a process to the logic. Once you understand that, logic only, you don't have to necessarily apply it to science. The logic itself stands alone as true because it has a consistency to it. It's not fallacious. It's just logical. That's what it's based on. Therein, if A, then B, or if A, not B, therein lies the empiricism. If you can't understand that as an audience member or Jaron when I talk to him, then I will concede. No worries. There is no communicating this to you at this time. For whatever reason, I will attempt again. I will endeavour to progress this community through our illustrious leader Jaron Campanella by way of another attempt in the future, when hopefully all issues that have precluded him from absorbing this logic have been eradicated. And then we will try again, and again, and again, until he gets it. And Dave gets it. And anybody else who's in this community gets it. Yeah? Science has advanced every single one of us. The only reason we're talking on these computers is because of the empiricism offered via the scientific method that offered us quantum mechanics and the computers we all use. The only reason a lot of us are still alive is because somebody in their history has been benefited from the scientific method offering their predecessors medicinal assistance with empiricism behind it, offered from the scientific method. In other words, this method has advanced humanity. I'll be damned if I give up on flat earthers who just say no. No, I won't accept that. There might be a better explanation that comes beyond this logic that has an end point. Once you prove A does cause B, it cannot simultaneously not be the cause of B. It doesn't work. Likewise, if you vary A and it doesn't cause the thing you're studying, it will never ever cause it. It won't be the case that you go move down the road 5 years and go, actually, I varied A, and it suddenly does cause it. No, that's not how this works. It either causes it or it doesn't, and when you vary, you find out. And when you find out, you've made a prediction. A will cause B. It did. Tick. Proven. Done. It's never going to not cause the effect. You're never going to heat water and it not boil. Right? That is how it works. You apply the heat, the water boils. Now, if you can show me a scenario where you stick a flame underwater and then it never boils, yeah? Well, then you'll be violating the law of non-contradiction. You'll be throwing into dispute or disrepute every scientific validity that's ever been offered through this logic, because suddenly the law of non-contradiction stands. It can't, it won't, it's never going to happen. But that would be the case.
Can't force feed anybody though.
Suddenly you have something being the cause of something, you heat water and it boils. But also, just remember, just so you don't mistake what's going on here, because we live in a world of contradiction, you could also heat the water and it never boil. Really? I thought I heated it and it boiled. No, we have a world, a universe of contradictions where heat will cause water to boil and it also won't cause it to boil. Yeah, that's never going to be the case. That's where the logic lies. If A, then B. If heat, then water boiling. Also, null, zero difference result. If heat, water not boiling. That's what you'd have to show. You'd have to validate the other half of the hypothesis. Not, well, if I put a crock pot in the equation, well, then you've got a different variable. You don't understand what independent means. Independent variable means it's the single solitary thing that's varied in the experiment to offer the empiricism that the method provides. Not, well, if I vary the crock pot and the heat, independent variable on its own, alone. Again, a lack of understanding of the method itself will lead you to ask questions about other variables, what beyond the independent one that you're testing. You don't understand the method if you're asking me about other external forces that aren't being held constant as a constant variable in this particular experiment. That would be to say you're varying heat to try and induce the phenomena of water boiling. Now, if you introduce it and it validates the null, that would be to say that you apply heat to water and it doesn't boil. That's the only two outcomes based on a valid scientific prediction. Nothing about crock pots, nothing about acid content. One singular independent variable will be tested to see and validate if that is the cause of the effect, or, like in my hypothesis, not the cause of the effect. That one variable. And upon varying that one variable with all else held constant, you'll validate the zero difference result or the alternative. One or other will be proven. It's the only outcome. You can't have neither be proven, because neither being proven violates the law of non-contradiction. Neither being proven, well, A didn't cause the effect, or A didn't not cause the effect either. It's absurd. It is an impossibility built within the empiricism of the hypothesis. A causes B, or A doesn't cause B. Both can't be true, and only A, singular, independent on its own, alone, will be tested in an experiment. That's what I need to get across. How the logic of if A then B, or if A not B, is empirical, will offer an empirical outcome as a predictive statement with logic attached. There you go. That's my rant. That's what I'll be discussing. That probably took the 10 minutes I practiced or hoped that the dissemination of the information will take place when I repeat it almost verbatim tomorrow.
Is it tomorrow or Thursday?
So you're gonna
Thursday.
force feed it.
Huh?
Thursday. I thought it was Wednesday.
Yeah, it's Thursday. Well, today's video, the guy says it sucks. At a TED Talk. That is a
I
scientific
believe that
method.
science has had countless benefits for humanity. But when I was in 8th grade, I learned about this thing called the scientific method. And since then, I have done science, I have worked with other scientists, and I've taught science to college students, to K through 12 teachers, and to 7th and 8th graders, middle schoolers. And from these experiences, I've come to the conclusion that the scientific method sucks. If it's been a while for you, as it has been for me since middle school, let me run through it real quick for you. First of all, step 1.
What the hell? Identify a problem. You think this is the scientific method? Do some research. Formulate a hypothesis. That's incorrect. You're not identifying a problem. You're observing natural phenomena as step 1. So straight off the bat, if you're saying this is wrong or garbage, it's because you're peddling pseudoscience as though it's the scientific method. So this is pseudoscience, and pseudoscience that doesn't adhere to the scientific method already has a definition. You can call it garbage, but it's actually just pseudoscience. Starting without a natural phenomena would be pseudoscience. That's what this is. So if you're calling this garbage, I'd agree, but it's pseudoscience. This isn't the scientific method as you have labelled it, in quotes. No. Observe naturally occurring phenomena. Something that you want to explain the cause of in nature. That's step 1. Identify a problem. I could give you a maths problem. You're going to put that through the method? I could give you some maths problem and then you could do some research on it. Yeah, that isn't step 1.
1, identify a problem.
Nope.
Step
Did
2,
he?
do some
Nathan,
research.
He
Yeah.
said that he got taught this in school. Really? Was this the scientific method he got taught in school?
No, you got
That's
it from
not the
Google.
scientific method I got taught in school.
You got it from Science Buddies on Google.
Step 3, form a hypothesis. Step 4, do an experiment with some independent and dependent variables to test your hypothesis. Step 5, analyze data. Step 6, draw a conclusion.
Why would you need to draw a conclusion if you've done an experiment with independent and dependent variables? The conclusion is the outcome of the experiment. You don't need to analyse anything. Either A causes B or it doesn't cause B. What's to analyse?
You
I
did
get it.
say something independent and dependent variables. So just toss a few in there.
Pardon?
He said
some independent variables. So we could just toss a few in there.
A few independent variables, like plural.
It sounds good, right?
No, it sounds like garbage. Other than the step 4, do an experiment with independent and dependent variables to test your hypothesis. Well, your hypothesis is your independent and dependent variables. That's all your hypothesis consists of. Just with 2 statements. 1, your independent variable will cause your dependent variable. And 2, your independent variable won't cause your dependent variable. That's a zero difference result, otherwise known as a null hypothesis. The 2 go alongside one another, and upon variation of an independent variable, you'll either cause the effect you're studying in nature, not the problem you're trying to solve. The effect, that's a dependent variable. Effect in nature. Yeah, right there, it says dependent variable. Yeah, that's not a problem you've encountered. A problem, right, does it vary? Does your maths problem vary? Just a maths problem. Variables, that's something happening. You know, when it varies, that's its occurrence. It's phenomena. Its phenomenal value is the thing happening. That's a dependent variable. Whether or not the dependent variable occurs upon variation of the independent variable, that's an experiment. Whether or not it causes it, there's nothing to analyse it. It just does or doesn't. There's only one outcome possible.
It certainly matches what we see on TV and in movies.
It certainly does. Doesn't it? Yeah, it matches what we see in the movies. But it doesn't make it the scientific method. It isn't.
And what we see on the news. Unfortunately, it completely misrepresents what scientists do and what science is all about.
Couldn't agree more. Scientists will be the person that assumes the cause of an effect they're studying. That would be to say that they suppose the independent variable. But you could also call a scientist somebody who varies the independent variable to see if it causes the dependent variable, the effect studied in nature. That's what scientists actually do. That's what science is.
Lucidchart makes intelligent
And this manifests in four main ways. First of all, it's incredibly linear. We start with a problem statement and we end with a conclusion. This implies that science is something that's once and done, fixed for all time.
No, you've got two outcomes. If you validate the zero difference result, that's to say that you put a tick because you've, let's just try and say this nice and slowly, proven that what you assumed would cause the effect did not cause the effect, then you have proven your null hypothesis. Oh, my prediction, null hypothesis, was A won't cause B. And what do you know? I varied A, and it didn't cause B. So I have proven my null hypothesis. Tick. See how that's proven now? But you still don't know the bloody cause of what the effect is, do you? So is that it? One and done? Oh, we proved our null. It didn't cause it. Yeah, we still need to know why they're dying, though. Yeah, we'd really like to know the cause of why they're dying. Very nice to think that we could one and done this into a null hypothesis and then move on with our day, but we'd prefer you gave us the cause of why our people are dying in this respect with this illness. Could you not give us the cause of their debilitating death? Would that not be better to find the cause of it? I'd prefer you just went on and did it again with a different independent variable. Suppose something else caused it and vary that to see if you can actually cause it so we know what causes it. Because that's bloody useful when we know what causes things. Yeah, and there's a method for doing it. It's just not a one and done method. It's very much you've got to get it right and find out what actually causes the effect you're observing and studying. Because otherwise men come home with scurvy and you go, maybe it's the potatoes that they're eating. Let's try them on a different potato. We'll vary potatoes. And then they still die. Yeah, it's much more useful to actually find out what causes scurvy, lack of vitamin C in this instance. Yeah, that would be useful if you could vary and manipulate that which you assume causes the effect you're studying. In this case, something that causes people to die. And then when you vary and manipulate that which you assume causes the effect you're studying, death, and you validate that a lack of vitamin C causes it, then you can stop people from having a lack of vitamin C and stop the death by establishing the cause of the effect. So, in many ways, science is absolutely crucial for benefiting humanity by proving things. Now, it's not always the case that your proof will be useful. Proving that something doesn't cause something else, validation of a zero difference result, aka proving you're null, isn't that useful. But you've still definitely proven something. I mean, it proves that it isn't that. That's still useful. When someone else comes along and says, maybe it's the potatoes, you can say, nah, we varied and manipulated the potatoes as an independent variable. And what do you know? We still got people dying. We didn't find out that it was the cause. Lack of potatoes wasn't the cause of them dying. What do you know? But you still proved it wasn't that. So you don't have to piss around with potatoes anymore. Potatoes don't have a high vitamin C content, do they? I don't think so. Anyway.
Secondly, it's not very intuitive. How do I choose a problem? What do I do with my conclusion when
Right, how do you choose a problem? My God. No. You observe a naturally occurring phenomena. So there's these guys coming back and they're dying at sea. But there's also this other problem. I mean, I don't know what I could choose. No, it tends to be the case that humanity and the way the direction of society goes, often with debilitating disease being the leading factor, it'll kind of dictate which way science goes. Because there's often a need to find the cause, yeah, to prove and validate causes of effects we observe. That will often just find its way to you in many instances. Often people observe phenomena that they don't observe the cause of, and they want to know why. And you know, there's a method that's really useful for doing that. It's called the scientific method. It's just not this garbage. Not intuitive. How'd you pick your problem? No, you just see something happening and go, I wonder why that happened.
I'm done? If I have no idea what should or even could happen.
Yeah, that's the genius of the construction of a hypothesis. The genius is to say that I suppose this will cause that and get it right.
How do I come up with a hypothesis?
You suppose a variable and then you vary it in the experiment. It's really easy. You see a phenomenon and go, I wonder what caused that. I think A caused that phenomena I just saw. You know what I'm going to do now? I'm going to vary A. Oh, it didn't cause it. You know what that proved? Like, empirically proved that what I thought would cause it didn't. Because I varied it and it didn't cause it. So I validated, proved my null hypothesis. Because I automatically, before doing my variation of A to see if it caused the effect, made a prediction that it wouldn't. It went alongside the prediction that it would. Ergo, when I varied it, I got an empirical outcome that it didn't cause it. I mean, not as useful as proving what did cause it, but still I got a valid, provable, repeatable outcome that went alongside my prediction, and I proved that prediction to be true. A didn't cause B in this instance. But if I was more smart, I might have got it right. I might have actually figured out what the hell did cause it, vary that, and then show that it did, empirically, to be repeated over and over again. And every time it's varied, it proves that that effect will happen.
This makes the process intimidating and dangerous.
No, total garbage. Not intimidating if you understand it. Not dangerous. The experiment stage could get dangerous, I suppose, in terms of the setup. But no, hypothesis construction is in no way dangerous at all. Writing down what you suppose causes an effect isn't in any way dangerous. Zero danger. In fact, I'm going to give it, I don't know which way micromort scales go, but if it's very high for something that's unlikely to kill you, then it's got a very high micromort scale. Or if it's very low, it's got a very, very non-existent micromort scale in terms of how likely you're going to be killed by formulating a hypothesis. Because writing down A causes B, and then alongside it, A doesn't cause B, is in no way life-threatening to anybody ever.
3, there's a focus on conclusion, reaching the conclusion.
No, the conclusion's reached when you vary A and it causes B, or you vary A and it doesn't cause B. That is the conclusion. The focus would be on your bullshit that goes along with your nonsense that isn't adhering to any validatable empirical method that will give you proof at the end of it. But what your focus is on the conclusion. Yeah, because bullshitters who say that they've got this method, they focus on their conclusions. And they incorporate the nonsense of science, which they haven't got, into their conclusions, which they didn't validate through an empirical method.
On getting a fact.
Yeah, the variation of a presumed cause to validate the effect you were studying would be a fact if you did it.
Well, what happens when the information changes? What happens when...
Right, so you think that vitamin C will stop, or the lack of vitamin C will stop causing scurvy sometime soon, do you? What happens when that changes? Sorry, are you insane? Do you believe that at some point the cause of scurvy is going to change? You think that tomorrow I can starve a man of vitamin C and he won't get scurvy? Yeah, because these facts might change tomorrow. No, you're stupid. No, once you validate something empirically, there is no changing that. Once you understand that if you deprive a man of vitamin C, he'll die of scurvy, that's not going to change tomorrow. But only the fact that we know depriving him of vitamin C will cause his death by scurvy would be the reason the courts would cause somebody to be convicted of murder should they deprive a man of vitamin C for a prolonged period intentionally. Because scientifically we know and have proven that depriving a man of vitamin C will kill him. We know that. We've proven it with science. And it will never, ever, ever change. Empirical. You don't know what these words mean? No, because you're bullshit and lying science that doesn't prove a damn thing. Actually might change tomorrow based on the conclusions they drew without empirical outcomes and science. Yeah.
When facts change. How does this process capture that?
This bullshit process that isn't science.
And finally, the focus on experimentation.
Like, why would you say facts change? The thing about this is that they don't change. This is entirely nonsensical.
Go ahead,
I was just going to say what Arwen said. When facts change, so they were never facts to begin with.
Exactly. If they're changing tomorrow, yeah. Oh, it's scientific proof today, but that might change tomorrow. Hello, you stupid idiot. It was never a fact to begin with if it changed. It wasn't validated to be true because it wouldn't ever change. Like I say, you're not going to find that suddenly starving a man of vitamin C won't cause scurvy tomorrow. That's not going to happen. Shout out to Unitox Femu. Says sea level and elevation angles are dangerous. Borderline there, Sasha, but thank you for the super chat. Really appreciate the support.
Don't get me wrong. I'm a big fan of teaching students to control for whatever random variables they can.
Sorry, it's anything that isn't the independent variable that must be kept constant. I mean, whatever they can. I mean, it's okay if they're doing the experiment in a situation that doesn't allow for an independent variable to be held constant. That's fine. Just do what you can. No. These terms are defined. Independent variable. That means it's the only thing that varies. Everything else is held constant. There's no exceptions. It's just stupid.
But there's been a lot of really good science that's been done without being able to control for, well, anything.
Then it wasn't science. It didn't have an independent variable if many things were varying.
For a moment.
No, so he said that there's been lots of good science. But what he went on to describe as, quote, good science wasn't actually science. So you can appreciate why someone like Jaron would have the misapprehension that this guy's science, which is bullshit, means that there is no proof in science. Because he's now going to go on to how, the conclusion drew by a man, without empiricism attached, might change. Yet the man's conclusion was always wrong. Yeah, it had a half-life, did it, that fact? That's not how it works. Empiricism is never going to alter. Like I say, the guys aren't going to suddenly be starvable of vitamin C tomorrow and they're not going to die. Oh, well, I knew, in the back of my mind, I thought that it could change. We've got a half-life of facts. Depriving him of vitamin C, I mean, it's not necessarily going to kill him. That might change tomorrow. Didn't it change already? These facts have a half-life after all.
And I'd like for you to imagine what budget it would take to create a laboratory here on Earth to study the interior of Jupiter.
Sorry, is the interior of Jupiter a naturally occurring phenomena? AKA what you put on screen earlier in your hypothesis construction stage 4? That would be dependent variable. Sorry, interior of light in sky. Variable, you say? It seems like what you're describing as your fantasy concrete noun is somehow going to become a variable? How the hell is the interior of a twinkling light a variable? Number one, why would you assume a twinkling light's got an interior? And what the hell of that interior you assume would be varying? It's just utterly absurd. He's put dependent variable up, but now he's talking about a concrete noun in Fantasyland. Shout out again to Unitox Femu. Drop over distance is even more dangerous. Rolling face, rolling face, rolling face. With laughter. Thank you, Sasha. Really appreciate the support.
Or to form a star from scratch.
Sorry, what? You think that's a dependent variable? You forming a star from scratch? Yeah, you know what? That's the first time you've come close. So if you were to make a star develop, that would be you varying something that induced the effect of star. So if you're going to say the star light itself, the star itself, if that you could just about get away with calling a dependent variable. Well, there's a sky above me, then there's a star. So the star's appearance could be called a phenomena. It wasn't there, now it is. Something's happened. Okay, I'll take it. So that's your dependent variable then, star. Okay, I'll have it. Well, yeah, you as a scientist would need to vary and manipulate that which you assume causes star. So independent variable, that's A in all my examples. What you think causes it, causes B, star. A, your independent variable, like you detailed in stage 4, and B, dependent variable, also known as naturally occurring effect in nature. That's a bit redundant. Anyway, or null hypothesis, zero difference result. If A, what you assume will cause this star, then no star appearance. That's zero difference result. So you say, I think my farts will cause the star. Okay. So independent variable, that which you, the researcher's going to vary is your flatulence, will cause star's appearance in sky. So my alternative hypothesis, clown on TED Talk, flatulence, independent variable, causing dependent variable appearance of star according to him. And zero difference result, null hypothesis alongside it. If clown on TED Talk's flatulence, no star appearance. Then what do? Well, an experiment. Let's let this man rip. No star. And what do you know? Well, that's useful because he farted and we didn't get a star appearing in the sky. So we varied our independent variable, that which we thought would cause the star to come, and the star did not come. We proved a null hypothesis. Isn't that amazing? We got proof. Farts don't cause stars. Yeah, that was a prediction we made before we varied it in a scientific experiment, because by varying that which was assumed in the hypothesis to cause the effect and seeing whether or not it did, we got to prove our null. Cool, huh? We just gave proof. Stars don't cause farts. Other way around. Anyway, the point is you need to make a prediction based on an independent and dependent variable. This clown's users just said stars. Yeah, prove what causes the stars then. Give us a prediction based hypothesis, and you'll have your independent variable that you would be the genius to predict will cause those twinkly lights. Or your variable that you will vary will be varied and it won't cause them. One will get proven if you put it into a hypothesis.
Or to study a galaxy's development. Do you want your tax dollars to go toward that?
No.
Now, you may be thinking, well, it's probably not that bad. I mean, we've trained generations of scientists using the scientific method, myself included.
We don't train people using the scientific method. The scientific method itself is not a training tool or a teaching tool. It's a method to validate or elucidate the cause of an effect. So you don't use that method to say, well, if I impart that on you, become a scientist, because otherwise I could classify myself as a scientist for simply understanding and being able to disseminate what the scientific method is. So his inference that by having scientists be beaten with a stick of scientific method, they become scientists? Just absurd.
Surely I'm exaggerating. Well, let me walk through a few statistics with you. 65% of Americans have little to no idea what scientists do on a day-to-day basis.
You're one of them.
50% of them, however, have considered it, whatever it is, dangerous. 32% of middle schoolers, of 8th graders, score at or above proficiency in science in 2011. The good news is that's up from 30% in 2009. The bad news is that implies that 60...
Ed?
Yeah, he just got through saying the boatload of things, and then he puts up these slides, 65, 30, whatever the percentages were. Is that true? How does he know that's true?
Well, according to
did he
Vic,
do?
well, I did actually. Vic Reeves says that 69.7% of all statistics are actually made up on the spot.
Right, but exactly. So here he is decrying that the true scientific method doesn't work, but then he puts up these statistics and says these are true.
Yes. Who cares whether these statistics? 65% of Americans don't know what scientists do. Okay.
No, this is what. No, you're missing my point. My point is because it's been so convoluted, this is how he's getting these numbers. People are confused because it has never been held in its context to be what the way we're sharing it or the way you're going to try to share with Jaron. It's changed so much. This is why these numbers are there.
8%, 2/3, middle schoolers score below proficiency. 30% of elementary school teachers feel well prepared to teach science. Now that's compared to 52% who feel well prepared to teach social studies, 66% who feel well prepared to teach mathematics, and 77% who feel
I'm sorry, who cares?
Feel well prepared to teach reading and language arts. But here's my favorite statistic of all, the one I find most telling. Of 2,000 parents surveyed in the UK, 50% said that they feared answering their children's questions about science. Questions like, why is the sky blue?
How is that a science question? That's a concrete noun. That's not a phenomena. The sky being blue isn't something... Sorry, do you want to explain how that's a science question when point 4 of your list had independent variable and dependent variable? They were the two things in a hypothesis, right? That's what he listed. Do you want to explain how the sky being blue, not becoming blue from night, but just being blue, is anything other than a concrete noun? No, it isn't. It's not a phenomena. That's not a science question.
And why is the moon out during the daytime?
That you could almost call a phenomena. Almost.
Yeah, what is the
20%.
moon?
Yeah, what the hell is it?
1 in 5.
What is questions? All of these what is questions. That's not what science deals with. Cause and effect. Now, he knows it, or he's just hijacking the words to sound clever when he says independent and dependent variable. Sounds kind of sciencey, doesn't it? Yeah, it is. But how is any of the things he's just listed as being fears of parents in the UK in regards to their science questions from kids, when they're what is questions? Yeah, these aren't science questions. Cause and effect. Independent variable and dependent variable. That's things varying. Oh my God.
5 said that in response to such questions, they said, no one knows, or made something up.
Oh, really? You're telling me that 50% of UK parents would just bullshit their kids and make something up? Yeah, I doubt that. Actually, why do I doubt that? Yeah, you're probably right. Probably they just make up some crap and tell them.
This concerns me.
It doesn't concern me. I don't put my kids in a public school. So I'm not concerned about the bullshit they have to endure at the hands of teachers who follow a syllabus.
As a culture, as a civilization, we fear science.
Hands up on the panel, as we are all part of civilization. Who fears science here?
This is terrifying. It's terrifying to me that he thinks that
again.
that's science.
Without the sarcasm, who actually fears science here?
How about a pun? That's a vile question.
For a third time. Anybody, let's rephrase it again. Anybody here feel that they would raise their hand in the respect to having a fear of science in any way, shape or form? Raise your hand now.
I fear that they don't understand science.
I'm afraid of knowing the cause of an effect or not knowing it. I'm terrified.
Without the sarcasm. Right, let's move on.
Why? Well, I believe there are 3 main sources of that. First of all, we're obsessed with right answers. We're obsessed with conclusions. And as we go further and further, we learn more and more stuff. We can't keep track of it all.
Yeah, I tend to find in my example of scurvy, people were terrified to find out the answer of why their loved ones were dying at sea. I mean, they really, really were. No, they weren't. They were scared of the phenomena. The phenomena was terrifying. The science had the answer to stop them from dying. Nobody feared the science at all in that scenario. In fact, I would have assumed that many pleaded with science, your reification thereof, just men, that at that point need to have a little guess what's causing their men to die, right? That's what they would have appealed to. They wouldn't have been scared of it. They'd have been scared of their men coming back from sea and dying. That's what would have scared them. But you think science is scary? No, not at all. Now, science has advanced humanity.
In addition, the facts, those conclusions, change. Let me give you an example.
I mean, men stopped dying of scurvy when deprived of vitamin C only last week. No, my friend. Once you validate that which has caused the effect you observed in nature and proven it empirically, ruled out the null hypothesis, that's it. That's the end. You have proven the cause of the effect. You know, at that point, you could assume that it will change and allow men to die by not utilising the knowledge that you gained that will never, ever, ever, ever change. You could deprive them of that knowledge because it might change. Or you could just use the knowledge that you acquired through the scientific method to stop people dying immediately. You could do that. I mean, I would suggest that that would be the thing to do and continue doing forevermore so that nobody ever dies of scurvy again because of your stupid assertions that it might change tomorrow. No, that's never going to change, ever. Once you've got empirical validation for things, they don't change. That's what empiricism means. Shout out to James Richard. He says, of course the parents just make stuff up. They teach their children Santa is real. No, I don't. They also teach them that Earth is a sphere. No, I don't. Appeal to the authority fallacy. No, not me. I'm the exception to the norm then in that case, James. But thank you for the super chat. I'm sure that maybe 50% of... I actually have decided that it's not 50%. It's 48.3% of UK parents.
You made that up.
I did not.
You made...
No. Outrageous.
On like 78.4% of men. Forget that. That's a lovely point, the scurvy, to look at what science is and look at what medicine is and how science can support medicine. And when something's proven scientifically within the field of medicine, it's never going to change. Yeah? There are lots of things in medicine like chemotherapy that seem to be proven to cure cancer or not, depending on your opinion, yeah. But never ever will the lack of vitamin C not cause scurvy, the deficiency of it. That's proven scientifically, not within the discipline of medicine. Medicine doesn't have as high standards as science, even though a lot of the time it's trying to elucidate a cause and effect relationship. Its standards are nowhere near as high to give you that definitive answer. A lot of the time, medicine will use probability, correlation to try and help you. But the things that will definitely help you in medicine are those facts that are established through the scientific method, like vitamin C and scurvy.
Okay, but if I had, say, for the sake of argument, a medicine that cured ingrowing toenails, right? And I didn't actually have any science to validate the cause of the effect of your toes curling in and stabbing you in your own feet, right? But there is an effect to observe, and I've got some medicine to treat that, right? Now, would it be useful, Adam, if I was to say, for example, scientists at Oakley Laboratories have proven that this method will resolve the effect of ingrown toenails? Would you say that that would be quite a useful marketing ploy? I mean, even if I haven't actually put it through the scientific method, saying that I've got scientists working on this and that those scientists have produced what I will now sell you, that would be quite useful, would you think, marketing-wise?
I think, yeah, from a consumer point of view, you could fool the consumer as to the validity of the evidence you've got to cure that ingrown toenail, yeah.
Right,
you could lie.
Okay.
And give false.
So equally, if I observed that my wife's hair started off really shiny, and then after a period of time it becomes quite dull, I could say, you know, going from light to dull, I mean, you could almost, at a stretch, call that a phenomena. Would you agree, Adam?
Well, that is a phenomena, yeah. If you've observed it and you've noticed that happen,
I see.
then technically it's a phenomena.
But therefore, if I was to allude, without putting anything through the empirical method of a phenomena that I've just described, and a presumed cause of that effect, and alongside it, my presumed cause not being the effect of dull hair, if I was to not put that through the scientific method in any way, shape or form, but create an advert that showed a woman with really shiny hair, and then say something like, I don't know, here comes the science part, and then describe a chemical formula that's used in my shampoo, would you say that that would give you the impression that my shiny hair shampoo has definitely been scientifically validated to give you shiny hair. Would you say that that would be the impression you were given if I was to say something like, here comes the science part, when I in fact haven't put anything through the method of science?
Give validity, false validity to your product as you claim a methodology that you're using to support the validity of your product that you haven't bothered to put it through.
What about if I said that the world was a sphere and we weren't flying off it because of a gravitational attraction that scientists can easily validate is there? Would that lend validity where I haven't put anything through the scientific method? I don't have a phenomena in the first instance to study. But do you think that might be helpful in terms of marketing the idea that we're not going to fly off a spinning water ball flying through a sky vacuum? Just to say science says we've got gravity and scientists show we've got gravity, and then show, I don't know, a two-dimensional lattice work with a bend in it, for instance. Would that maybe lend credence to my ideas of gravity?
That would have less credence because both claims are not employing the scientific method, are they? But at least your wife's shinier hair has an observed phenomena. If we're talking about gravity, we don't have that observed phenomena, do we? We just have helium balloons going up, stones going down if I pick them up and let go of them. So it would have less scientific validity to claim gravity because fundamentally within the scientific method, which is the thing we're appealing to give us validity, one has an observed phenomena. Your wife's got shiny hair and she didn't have. Gravity's not yet been demonstrated to be a phenomenon.
Right, so you just need both of those things in his step 4. Independent variable and dependent variable, which will be something varying. Okay, well, if you're going to claim that the thing that's varying is all things going down, then we're going to need to observe all things going down, and they don't. Gases don't go down. So what the hell's the phenomena if you can observe the antithesis of the occurrence to be explained occurring? James Richard says, I want this guy to do a survey of adults that know what the scientific method is. Perhaps he could also include himself. Maybe. Thank you for the super chat. Really appreciate the support. Also, shout out to Jardo, gifted 10 memberships. Thank you very much indeed, Jardo. Yes, I am clicking buttons. We'll get there. We'll get there. Go on, Adam. Did you want to say something?
No, accident. I thought I was unmuted, so
Okay,
I muted. But I think that's a really important point. If you're going to grasp this, yeah, I know it's a little bit flippant, tongue in cheek, but using Jennifer Aniston as the here comes the science, Alicia Timotei, your Pantene Pro V, they're claiming something. Look, shiny hair. They're observing some change, something that seems to happen. Now, whether or not you put Pantene V on, it makes your hair shinier, okay? So there is something to observe there. And that's the point I'd say when people are trying to invoke gravity as a valid phenomena. There isn't something to observe there because not all things that... If you put that on your hair, it's always going to make your hair shinier in a way, yeah? Now, whether or not you can take that and validate it scientifically is a separate matter. The important point is that you've identified a phenomenon. That's your first step. And that's the disparity here. When we go to gravity, we're not even able to get that. Never mind isolate and vary things. We're not able to identify the phenomenon in of itself within the natural world.
Me, when you were growing up, there were 9 planets in the solar system. In 2006, one of these things was eliminated. Which brings me to my third point. Why?
You can achieve so much in just...
Understand how these decisions get made. We don't understand the thought process behind it. Now, all of these problems possibly don't lie at the feet of the scientific method.
No, not unless you're asking cause and effect questions. It's very, very narrow. The scientific method only deals with cause and effect.
It's not helping.
Nathan,
Yes.
Your scurvy example, could he ever say that about your scurvy example? We were told that it's caused by the lack of vitamin C, but now we're told it's not. Why?
There is, however, a better way. Let me introduce you to the cycle of scientific thinking. This starts with interesting observations. What counts as interesting? Well, if you find yourself asking the question, what happened there? Why did that occur?
Yeah, exactly. Why did that occur? That would be something varying. Sorry, why is the sky blue? Is that something occurring? So straight away, your examples of the fear-induced parenthood of UK citizens in regards to their, quote, scientific questions from their children, it's not occurring, is it? There's nothing happening. Yeah, step 4 in your list, dependent variable. Blue? Is blue a variable? Is blue variable? It's just blue. Yeah? Just the concrete noun, right? Nothing happening.
What's going on?
What's going on with blue?
It's probably interesting.
Just not science if you're dealing with concrete nouns or what is questions.
In the face of such questions, the human brain does an amazing thing. It tries to come up with an answer, a story, an explanation of what's going on.
Yep. And you guys will call that science. Meanwhile, stories don't cut it when there's an empirical method of science. Observe natural phenomena, suppose the cause of the effect, formulate it into a hypothesis, with the dependent variable being step 1, the observed phenomena, and the independent variable being that which you assume will cause it, with a null zero difference result alongside it. If A, your presumed cause, then not B, the effect you're studying, zero difference result. Then you experiment, vary A and see if it causes the effect. If it does, you validate your alternative hypothesis and you can advance humanity. If it doesn't, oh, one more thing, it won't change tomorrow. Yeah? Just to make that absolutely clear. Once you validate that A causes B, tomorrow you won't find the antithesis is true, that A suddenly doesn't cause B anymore. That won't happen.
Now, a lot of people are perfectly...
Earlier.
Again, Adam?
I heard the half-life of facts that I think it's a QI Stephen Fry quote. Yeah, that doesn't apply to science. Listen to what he's claiming. They're historical facts. They're not scientific facts that change. They never change. The cause and effect relationship has been established. And I would struggle to hear anybody give me a scientific proof of something, cause and effect relationship. Yeah. Now, what caused the Second World War? Let's take the First World War. What caused the First World War? Those facts may change because fundamentally they're not facts, they're opinions. And that's where the half-life of facts come in. This is why the scientific method is so strong. Why it has such validity when it's able to make a definitive statement. It won't ever change. Yeah, you go on a long journey and do not ingest vitamin C, you will get scurvy. You don't even have to be on a boat. Yeah, you deprive your body of those nutrients. We've shown scientifically why that is, what the cause is, and what the effect is. It's never going to change. It's been demonstrated via the method. Now, you might be able to add nuances to it. You don't just need oranges. You can have limes. But fundamentally, you're then expanding on that basic principle that will never change. It is citrus fruits. You might be able to add more citrus fruits. Yeah? And then you can add that it's actually this specific chemical compound that is the actual cause of the effect, not just oranges, lemons, limes. But fundamentally, even though you add more to the knowledge, you never change the underlying premise. It never contradicts it. You only ever add to the depth of your knowledge.
Happy to have an answer. But scientists, and this is what makes scientists different from other people, scientists want to know if their answer is right.
And the method provides them that once they vary their independent variable, it either causes the effect and they know they were right, or it doesn't cause the effect, and they also know they were right because they predict both. Hypothesis construction includes a zero difference result, otherwise known as null hypothesis. So in either event, they're going to be right upon experimentation, providing they've got a valid hypothesis. With an independent variable, that's what you assume will cause the dependent variable, the effect you're studying. You're going to be proven right either way.
And the way they do that is by saying, well, if my explanation is true, is correct, then I should also see this. They make a prediction. And
no, a scientific prediction is what I've described. A causes B, or A doesn't cause B. A causes B is an alternative hypothesis. A doesn't cause B is a null hypothesis. The two in conjunction is called a scientific prediction, otherwise known as a hypothesis.
And once you have a prediction, the only thing left to do is to go make observations to see if you...
No. Once you've got your prediction, you then validate your prediction. Not go and make an observation. No. You've already made the observation of the thing you're studying. Now you're predicting what will cause it. The only step after that is to see if it causes it or not. If it causes it, tick. I proved it causes it. Or if it doesn't cause it, I proved it doesn't cause it. That's what you do. Not make another observation. You've already made one.
You were right. And if you are, yay! But if you're not, if you're truly lucky and you got it wrong, then that's going to bring up more questions.
Explain to me in a hypothesis where you've got A will cause B and A won't cause B. Okay, that's your prediction. So you vary A and it does cause B. So that's right. You invalidate the null. You put a line through the null and a tick, meaning you're correct, through the alternative, or next to the alternative. Okay, so scenario one, we're not wrong. We're right. We put a tick next to the alternative, right? We were right. We got the prediction correct. Okay, well, what about the other? Well, we must get it wrong in the other alternative, the null hypothesis, rather. So, okay, we vary A. It doesn't cause B. So we were right about our zero difference result prediction. Oh, hold on a second. Aren't we wrong? No. We were right. We were proving our zero difference result true. It was proven to be true. You're telling me that if A, then B is wrong? We varied A, it didn't cause B, just like the prediction said. We were right. So, hold on a second. We were right in both instances. So, this clown's just told you what if you're wrong. No, the scientific method only gives you the opportunity to be right. One or other will be right. You can't be wrong. Yeah, it doesn't allow for that. You're only going to get a positive result in one or other prediction because there's two. Oh, what's that? You say you're going to rule out the other prediction? Yeah, they can't both be simultaneously true. It would violate the law of non-contradiction for A to cause B and simultaneously not cause it. That can't be. So you had to vary it to see which one was true. But one was definitely going to get proven at the end of the process. So I don't know where this, oh, well, what if I'm wrong? No, rejoice. You proved your null. You still proved something. In every single experiment ever.
Questions that require more explanation, which leads to new predictions.
Leads to a new independent variable, the next guess in the chain that you will make to see if that validates your null also. Oh no, we put something else through and we still didn't get it wrong. We validated our null again. AKA didn't validate the cause of the effect, but did validate what didn't cause the effect. We proved that wasn't the cause of it. Again. Yeah, you'll have to come back with another independent variable, won't you, and put that through the method to see if it causes it. And you keep doing it until you figure out what does.
And so on, and so on.
What was this one and done crap?
And so on. Now, why is this better? Well, first of all, it actually represents what scientists do. In fact, postgraduate education in science is all about teaching people how to take interesting observations, ask pertinent questions, and then develop explanations.
whoa, make an observation and then make a prediction and an explanation. So where's the explanation coming from? How are you going to validate the explanation?
That lead to observable prediction.
So the explanation leads to further predictions, does it? So it's like your prediction that's not validated will lead to more predictions. And you think that's science? No, utterly absurd. Definitely not science. No, the explanations come from the validation of an experiment. There's no explanation needed because it's self-explanatory when A causes B or doesn't cause B. You don't need to explain anything. An idiot could understand it once you've got the explanation because you've actually caused the effect you're studying. But you think that, no, the process actually, rather than formulation of hypothesis and independent and dependent variable as detailed earlier, is now the cycle of scientific thinking. So now thinking about what explanation you'll give for a phenomena that you've observed is now scientific because it's scientific cycle of thinking. No, this is just somebody looking at something and then coming up with a story about it. And then saying, well, now we can make more predictions. Oh, wonderful. What about giving explanations that are empirical? That would be much more useful. So you observe men coming back from sea, dying of this disease. And according to this method, the cycle of scientific thinking, you've made your observation. Now you can ask some questions. I wonder why they're dying. Well, you know what you should do, scientist? Come up with an explanation for it. What's that you say? Maybe it's the mops and the chemicals they're using to mop the decks. Maybe it's that. Well, then we can make some more predictions. Yeah, that's garbage, though, isn't it? How has that stopped people dying of scurvy? They made the observations, they asked the questions, and then they came up with an explanation. I mean, it doesn't seem like we've got any empirical validation in this process of, quote, scientific thinking. I can see how easy it would be for somebody to come along and think that science wasn't proving things if they saw this. Because you'd see how there's nothing empirical about it. Looking at stuff and then coming up with explanations without any experimentation stage, without varying and manipulating an assumed cause to see if it actually does cause it or not. No, just make further predictions after explaining it. That's what science does. No, it fucking doesn't.
This is science. But secondly, and more importantly, it's much more intuitive and much
You there, Nathan?
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
Go on, sorry.
Uh-oh.
What? I was just on mute. Shout out to James Richards. Science is not
Trying to get us nervous.
Hold on a second. I was just on mute. Just give me a second. I'm just pressing buttons. James Richards. Science is not used to determine the shape of things. Yet the scientific community, open brackets, should be no such thing, close brackets, prove the Earth is a sphere. Yeah, exactly. The scientific community isn't the adherence to the scientific method and the empirical data that you'd get as an outcome.
much more engaging. The power is in your hands. Once you have an interesting question, do you want to go to the library and read up on other people's answers?
That's it. The idea of asking a question rather than actually putting it through an empirical method. This is the con, isn't it? Basically, this is the full con. Telling you that going through a process of thought and ascribing explanations to a phenomena after asking a few questions is the same as giving you an empirical outcome through a method of empiricism. It's not. This is the swindle, because he's just told the audience that is science. That's what science is, he said. Yeah? No, it bloody isn't. Looking at stuff, coming up with a few questions, that's definitely not science.
Or do you want to skip all that and come up with an answer of your own?
Now, that's what you are doing in your explanation. Coming up with an answer of your own isn't putting it through the method of empiricism to see what causes what.
And see if you can make a prediction and test it. It's up to you. That makes it much less intimidating.
It's just peppering this with words that sound like it's science.
Dating. From this as well, it becomes much more obvious how explanations change over time. In fact, there are only 3 possible things that can happen to a scientific model.
Oxymoron. Sorry, scientific model? What's that? This is a new terminology. There was me thinking that point 4 on your first explanation of the methods included independent and dependent variables. Where's that going to be in models? It won't. Just another hijacking of a term that people who bullshit you with models want you to think that they've got science when they haven't.
It makes the right predictions.
Oh, does it now? So models are making cause and effect relationships elucidate through systematic experimentation, are they? Are they scientific predictions, like you had at point 4?
In which case it becomes stronger.
Oh, does it? Oh, because you call them science, it becomes stronger? Yeah, that's how it works. If you can convince people that you've got empiricism to this nonsense, then it becomes stronger over time the more you repeat it.
Over time. It makes a few wrong predictions, in which case it is modified over time. Or it makes completely wrong predictions, in which case it will be abandoned over time.
So in my example with A causes B or A doesn't cause B, where was it completely wrong? You can't be completely wrong in the scientific method. The method won't allow it. You'll always be right. You'll always prove one of the predictions true. So how do you get to be really wrong? You can't. Nonsense.
This is the switcheroo that they're talking about. The prediction is contained in the hypothesis. It's not something you over-elaborate on and you can predict without demonstrating the cause and effect. That's what the hypothesis is doing. It's differentiating whether there is the cause of the effect or not. That is your prediction. Yeah, that's what the purpose of the experiment is to do, is to validate that presumed cause of the effect, not, without describing why something does something, predict what the result will be. It's very different. But it is that subtle switcheroo that enables you to allow mathematical predictions, to claim that you understand the cause of something. Even if you can predict something is likely to happen, it doesn't mean you've defined the cause. It just means you can guess. I'll go back to medicine. Yeah, we can do things that elucidate a cause sometimes. It doesn't mean we've scientifically proven what we're doing. Just actually it's beneficial on the balance of probabilities. And this is where these guys are trying to mismatch. It's easy for me to demonstrate with medicine that mismatch between a hypothesis within an experiment that proves the cause and the effect, and treatments that on a probability should elucidate an effect. Very different thing. One proves something every single time because of the way you've set up the experiment and the formulation of the hypothesis. Others, take vitamin D, you're less likely to get vid. Yeah? That's a probability thing. Might be proven that you're able to demonstrate, but it doesn't actually elucidate a cause.
The last great thing about this model is that it also illuminates something that's very dear to my heart. The idea that any explanation must be able to be proven false. And to explain this, I want to start with what would it take for me to show that my explanation of a phenomenon is true with a capital T. Well, if it's true, then every prediction it makes should match the observations. Well, how do
No. So he's convoluted establishing the cause of the phenomena and whether or not your explanation of the phenomena will make further predictions that are correct. No, that's nothing to do with science. Whether or not your descriptions of a phenomena will prove other predictions in future true. No. You see an effect, you want to know what caused it. You presume a cause of the effect and vary it. If it causes it, you know the cause of it. That's it. That's the end of the process. That's science. What he wants to do is say, once my scientific thinking process has gone through the mill, I've seen something like a light in the sky, and then I've come up with some interesting questions. I wonder what the interior of that light in the sky is like. And then you've made some predictions about what that interior of the light in the sky would be like. Now, you've done fuck all, but you've made quite a few predictions after some very, very interesting questions after observing phenomena. I mean, this all sounds very sciencey. Now, get this. Further to my prediction of the interior of the size of Jupiter, I'm going to say that further to my prediction, something non sequitur that I'll incorporate into and affirm in the consequent fallacy will happen based on my predictions of the interior mass of that light in the sky. Let's see if they're right or not. Because if they are, credence is given to me as the scientist who made this prediction. Because the prediction of the interior of the light in that sky, I mean, that's basically science. I've gone through the scientific cycle now, haven't I? That's science. No. Observe natural phenomena. Formulate a prediction for what caused that effect. Vary that which you assume caused that effect and see if it bloody causes it or not. That's science. This isn't.
How do I check that? I have to check every observation. That's not every observation that I can make with my current budget. That's not every observation that I can make here in this amount of time that I have.
Maybe you could give us this written down in a method. This is the method. The method of what you would have to do if you weren't doing it with just pure fiat thought injected into an observation. What you'd have to do is check every observation. Is that how it works? So independent variable and dependent variable 0.4 in your list. How does check every observation work when you're only controlling for the thing that you vary? That would be the independent variable, one, alone, singular, alone, on its own. So you're saying, no, not the independent variable base of scientific experimentation, but in fact, the inability to check everything all the time ever. What a load of crap.
I have. It's every observation, everywhere, every when. It's not possible.
So
in order to
just here, Nathan, he's seeming to seek validity from observation. That's step one, the observation. Once we've observed it, we're going to try and vary that which we think is the cause. Right? Now, we have to observe that, but we observe it within the constraints of the experiment. So the thing that we think is the cause, we're going to vary and see if it does vary it. He seems to be, he's more heading towards a natural law. If we observe things always, and this is, natural laws aren't science. He seems to be thinking that as long as I can keep observing it from every viewpoint, then it's science. It's not, because you've not at any point attributed a cause. You just said it always is. That's natural law, not science.
Oh, spot on. Yes, exactly. Watson is some descriptions of things, making observations and then describing them. Not causally, just describing what you see occurring. Nothing wrong with that. But any idiot can describe things. Yeah? Elucidating the cause of them, that's a different story.
To prove an explanation false, however, all I have to do is find out that it makes the wrong predictions and then make sure that I didn't make a mistake.
No, that is the prediction. When you say, will it be causing it or not? How do you find out if that's true? Well, in science, you vary that which you assume would cause it and see if it does or not. That's it. Once you do or don't, that's the end of the process. But based on your now quasi-science of what I'll think will be the explanation, how well that will work in a model I produce. That's the validity. Garbage. Garbage. Useless too. What's it give you? How does that benefit me in terms of humanity? How does any of this process that he's detailing benefit anybody ever? Can anybody tell me of any tangible benefit to this process?
This is mathematical. I think he's describing here. So can I take a mathematical prediction and see if it turns out? For example, can I presume that the orbit of Venus will mean I can predict via a mathematical model that Venus will appear in the sky at the point that I predict mathematically. We've not done anything. This is just nothing. This is the point, that what they're trying to do is stack in this. If I can predict something, that it adds validity to my assumption of what caused it without demonstrating what caused it, just using a mathematical model, it means I've got extra validity. It doesn't. It just means you can predict where it will be. It doesn't mean the methodology that you've used to predict it, i.e. a description of orbital mechanics with retrograde motion in the heliocentric version, is the correct description of what's going off, when all we see is the stars circle above our head. They're two different things. Now, just because you can predict where Venus will be via that model, you've not elucidated any cause and effect. But they want to add that if my prediction is correct, it means my mathematical description is the correct description. That's wholly false. It might be useful for you to then take that into science and an experiment. It might be great groundwork, prep work, which is part of stage one, observing things, testing things, applying a bit of logic, mathematics to things before you waste your time in an experiment of something that has no point doing it. But if you can get all those things together and go to experiment, then your experiment that you have to put a lot of effort into to differentiate your cause and your effect so that you can come to a conclusion of whether or not A affects B. Yeah? But they're just trying to mug you off that if you can just Mystic Meg predict something, somehow that validates it. And like I say, the best example I could say is using a mathematical model for orbital mechanics. And just because, and remember that model's built on observation, just because it then matches reality doesn't mean the mathematical model is correct and a description of reality. It just means it predicts.
Well,
And
Adam,
that's the
let's-
mugging off. They want validity on that point. Yeah, that as if it provides the empiricism. Just because the prediction matches means it's empirical. No. And that's where the switcheroo is here. A matching numbers provides empiricism. No. I've done, Temp, sorry.
No, sorry. You're making a good point. So isn't that summarized when we say it only exists in the maths? So
Yes.
what they do is they have an assumption of how they want the universe to be, and then they only make it work via the maths.
Yes, which isn't science, which isn't physics, which isn't the elucidation of cause and effect through systematic experimentation based on scientific prediction, aka hypothesis. No, saying that these numbers match these predictions of numbers that we thought we would get, and we did. Therefore, I've got empirical predictions. No. Science elucidates cause.
The way I think of this is to say, if you give me a model that consistently predicts the wrong thing, I can say with certainty your model is wrong. If you give me a model that consistently predicts the right thing, I can say with certainty that your model is not wrong.
Really?
No, nonsense. I've just described it with regards to orbital mechanics. You can use orbital mechanics to predict where the stars are. Yeah? Does it mean that orbital mechanics is correct? No.
What about
The way you have
phlogiston?
to
I
develop
like
the orbital
phlogiston as an
mechanics
example
is based
because
on
hold
your
on, Adam.
measurements from reality.
Sorry, Adam. If you use orbital mechanics, there's plenty of audience, 50% say, that believe that is their world, so it's hard for them to relate to that. Whereas if you use something like phlogiston, the maths of phlogiston.
Okay, yeah. So we assume that there is this amount of energy in all things upon combustion. We can predict the amount of combustion based on the amount of phlogiston. And when we burn a peanut, we see that it's got 200 kilocalories within it. That was the amount of phlogiston. No, there was no phlogiston in the first place, but the maths and the prediction marry up perfectly. Yeah, better example, Nathan.
Yeah, so we match up
That makes sense.
The model works. The prediction model of phlogiston, or phlogiston as I call it, worked perfectly. So we can say that it's right, can we? No, it wasn't. But the maths worked.
Yet. Let me give you an example. In 1781, we found the planet Uranus. But it did this really weird thing. At certain points in its orbit, it was further...
In its what? In its assumption based on someone else's description after making an observation that wasn't validated empirically? What, like Kepler's orbits? So based on his predictions of the cyclical motion of us moving around the sun in a heliocentric system that he created, you're going to make these further predictions that don't match. Oh, I see. So the phenomena is the non-matching of the predictions of the models of Kepler? I see. See how it all goes awry really quickly when you're basing it not on empirical evidence, but on observations followed by explanations from Kepler?
along than we expected based upon our models, our understanding of gravity.
What's gravity? Have you got scientific evidence of that? See, again, we're basing it on the assumptions and descriptions after asking questions as opposed to the empirical evidence based on phenomena and the assumption of the cause that you validated. See how these two things are very different?
And at other points in its orbit, it hadn't traveled far enough.
Far enough? So we've got distances now. So based on not only Kepler, but also Huygens and his assumptions of Venus having R values that we can use for scale in Kepler's third law of interplanetary motion. Those distances. You see, I'd need some of this stuff validating empirically before I accepted any of the problems that you propose are caused by the models not matching. It just means they're wrong. But we already knew that. We didn't assume that they were right just because they matched.
It was almost as if it was traveling too fast at some points.
How do you know it's travelling at all? Oh, my bad. Kepler and Huygens. Of course, just covered it.
And not fast enough at other points.
You got the speed from them too, right? Brian's probably joined because he wants to moan about the two-way speed of light that you're going to have to assume, which I haven't detailed, but now I've done it for him.
And astronomers looked at this and they said, you know, it looks a lot like something is pulling it.
It looks like something's pulling it, and then introduces two arrows with the word gravity and a question mark. I see. I mean, if you're going to suppose the cause of an effect, first you'd need to show us a phenomena. And the phenomena isn't an inaccuracy in Kepler's model. That's not a phenomena. The stars just do what they do. And if you're going to call it science, you're going to need to prove the cause of what they do. That would be their phenomena, or their phenomenal nature, in some respect. You're not doing any of that. You're saying there's a problem with your crappy model that made a load of assumptions that weren't validated. Yeah, that's just your crappy web of lies falling apart.
Pulling it a little bit faster or a little bit slower, depending on where it is in its orbit.
My name is Kate. I'm an artist.
Why are you skipping past the ads? This is
Maybe
a great
there's a planet
example
out there.
of where you refuse to let your model go. So you take your model, and based on everything that you've presumed, it turns out to be cack. What you don't do is bin the model. What you say is, oh no, I need to tweak the model, right, and pervert it in ways that I don't necessarily understand so that it comports to reality. And if I can get the maths to fit so that the numbers then predict what I measure in reality, then that then means what I've had to describe mathematically is the reality, and I can accept that to the point which I alluded to, which is elliptical orbits, yeah, which is the way to account for retrogrades. Yeah, there's only one way of doing it, is to keep tweaking your model. And as he describes, sometimes this magic force that we've not established of gravity pulls a little bit harder, pulls a little bit softer, keeping things in balance, but never pulling it to it. This is nothing to do with science. This is just trying to match predictions with mathematics so that you think you can describe, and they fundamentally describe things mathematically. As we've always said, if you're going to use maths, it's to use your best understanding of reality. Otherwise, the language you're using is invalid. If you take it to a realm where you're just making observations and fundamentally making assumptions of the mechanics to apply the maths to, which is what's happening here, if you keep doing that, eventually you'll get a match with reality. It doesn't mean the formulation you come up with has any bearing as a description of reality. All you've managed to do is get your predictions to match reality.
Magical thinking. That's how it'd be described if you're being assessed.
Maybe there's something interacting with it gravitationally.
Maybe. Maybe there is. Yeah. You'll need to validate that empirically via a method, but first you'd need to observe an effect, as opposed to a deviation from a predictive model that's not working.
And so they did the calculations, they found out where the planet should be, and
should be? I see. So now, based on Kepler's model, the planets should be somewhere else. These people think they're God. That's the bottom line. The church got ahead of themselves with Kepler, because now the people further down the line like this guy, when they see an error in the heliocentric model, they tell their audience that the star's not where it should be. Because where it should be is based on where I say it will be in this model. Now, if that's not right, then there's something wrong with reality. So we need to add something to reality. We're going to call it gravity. Because reality is not comporting with my model. So it's wrong. There's something else in the reality that we haven't yet discovered. So we'll magical thinking our way to a force that balances itself out. And here it is in the maths. See how it all works? And guess what? It was science that gave you all of it. Praise be to science.
And they pointed their telescopes in the sky at that location. The planet they found we call Neptune today. Now, this was awesome to be able to do this, and there were still discrepancies in Uranus's orbit. So they did calculations. They said,
Can we stop that there? Because we guys have researched this. This is one of their false claims. So they claim Neptune, the Uranus, would be predicted to be there. These things have been observed for millennia to be there. Yeah, they always were there, and there is a model that describes where they'll be based on a cycle. A flat planar cycle doesn't mean anything other than we have a model that's 100% accurate every single year that we use for celestial navigation. It doesn't mean that model is scientific in any way, shape, or form, but it is a model that doesn't need modulating. Yeah, and more fundamentally, it's not. This model isn't supported by a lie, which is what he's presenting here. He's trying to add validity to the prediction of Uranus and Neptune. Neptune, where have I heard that word before? Is it ancient Greece, ancient Rome, as a god from 2,000 years ago? Now they're trying to claim that this name and prediction has come from their Kepler model some 1,500, 1,600 years later. Listen to the obvious lies in their description. Yeah, we knew where it was. It used to appear. Sometimes it was visible based on the equipment we had. Sometimes it wasn't, but it was always predictable where it was. And they didn't use their model to predict where it was. They used the almanacs, which told you where it would be. This one annoys me. Why they try to pretend. This is proper ball of lies, this one. Trying to pretend that the Kepler model is the thing that supports this. No, they perverted their orbits to the point that eventually they described the orbit in such a way that it met reality, the observations in reality, and they had to tweak it consistently. And they jumped around for joy when they finally got their mathematical model to fit with the observations of reality. At no point does that mean that the mathematical description describes the orbit of Neptune, because orbits in of itself is such an assumption they've yet to prove.
maybe there's another planet out there.
I agree. Yeah, I was just going to say quickly, yeah, that Kepler, the whole orbits thing started with us being on a globe orbiting the sun. That's what Kepler was famous for, his analemma. But that is directly back engineered from observations of what the sun is doing, and all the positions of all the claimed planets in the sky, like Neptune. They were all known prior to any time before Kepler. Kepler learned all of that through astrology. So it's not science in any way. All that was already known a long time, way before Kepler ever existed. Kepler just back engineered it. That's all he did.
planet X. They did the calculations, they figured out where that planet should be, and they pointed their telescopes into the sky at that point. And they looked and they found nothing. And this was a problem. And they said, okay, but they continued to look. And eventually they saw something. And it wasn't where
The whole build-up with you telling us about how science is actually your method of looking at things and making predictions was just a big build-up for telling us how Kepler was right about orbits. That's basically the entire spiel and what this was for. To hijack science to elude that elliptical motions of Kepler's orbits are correct, because he's basically followed the scientific method. You know, the cycle of scientific thinking method, where he looked at something, had a little question about it, and then came up with an idea of what would be causing it, and then other people made predictions off the back of that, leading us to be looking in the sky for a gravitational-based planet in an orbit that he described. So obviously this is science. That was the whole point of this TED Talk, to bullshit the audience into thinking that this crap he's now talking about is somehow science.
where they expected, and it wasn't really the size.
Sorry?
I was going to say, if Kepler was so correct, then how come they have to completely ignore the tilt that he gave them when they're doing their astrology and all of their movements in the sky? They must use the equatorial plane at equinox.
But they said, we found something, and it's a planet, and we're going to call that thing Pluto. Fast forward 60 years. Astronomers continued looking, continued taking observations. And another one popped up. Same size, same composition, same location.
Literally no mention whatsoever of the experimental stage, the independent variable and dependent variable at point 4 in his original opening. That's just completely by the wayside at this point. I mean, it's still science. These are still scientists. This is still science proving we're on a ball flying around the sun. Obviously. It's just not got any of the prerequisite requirements that he described in the scientific method, convoluted though it was earlier, at point 4, independent and dependent variables. Where the hell are they gone? Not even being mentioned anymore.
No, this is... I want to just... if we look at Tycho Brahe, Kepler, yeah, they're building mathematical models and making predictions to fit observations in reality. And what I'd like to point out is Brahe and Kepler, within their models to fit observations in reality, have the sun at 13 million miles away. So is their model correct in any way, shape or form? No. They've convoluted it and got the luminaries doing whatever they've got them doing based on Earth orbiting the sun at 30 million miles away. Now, people would laugh today at what a retarded thing. It's clearly 93 million miles away. So do you understand? Every bit that is proof is false. The only bit is the numbers you can put to match reality. So the descriptions back then were totally incorrect. Might balance nicely so you can see these orbits at 13 plus million miles away, but none of it ever demonstrated reality. Yet the maths worked. It was perfect even at 13 million miles. Even now, modern ballers would laugh and scoff at that claim. Yeah, but the maths worked. Now, by his standards, that was reality. 13 million mile away sun, yeah, and the rest of it working. That is reality. This is the half-life of facts, when facts aren't really based on anything other than opinion, assumption, and equated with a little bit of mathematics. That's not science.
And another one.
Yeah, Brian.
They had to make the sun bigger and further away as they made their universe bigger and further away. That's all it is. They had to expand everything out based off of the sun. All our stars are based off of what they claim the sun is. That's where all that starts. But when that all had to become bigger, especially around Einstein's time, like the likes of the sun had to become bigger and further away, based off its angular size. They can make it any size. I can do the same. I can claim anything mathematically, any size or distance to the sun, and then you take their whole model and match it all around that, and it'll work mathematically.
This is why 93 is fixed now. Because back then, they're not balancing the R value. They're not doing all these things. They're quite happy to have a mathematical model, yeah, that will fit without worrying about R, yeah. All we've got to do is explain the positions of the luminaries and build numbers around that. Hence why you can stick the sun. It's got to be big and far away still, but it's 8 times less, yeah, than the actual claim distance as of today. So that mathematical model is a bunkum. At best, you've got some formula that will predict, and that's absolutely fine. I'm happy with that prediction. You can describe it how you want, and if it makes accurate predictions, brilliant. But don't tell me that it's a description of reality. And more fundamentally, don't tell me that you've done science. Shows you don't understand what science is.
They're not scientific predictions.
Yes, that's
No, but this is what the ballers are claiming, isn't it?
Great minds.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I was going to launch into, QE. The distinction between a Nostradamus prediction and a scientific prediction, aka hypothesis.
No, there's a difference here. Again, it's not a Nostradamus. It's not pulling it out your arse with a bit of prose, yeah? It's a bit like, how do you define gravity, yeah? How do you make up a mathematical you drop ball bearings and measure the rate of acceleration, and then you build a concept around those measurements from reality. It doesn't mean the concept is correct description of the acceleration you've observed, yeah? It just means you fitted something around it to match the numbers that you will get from reality. At no point is that a description of reality.
Yeah, they just took what was once a cycle and turned it into a globe prediction, a heliocentric prediction. But it was a cycle before it was a heliocentric prediction.
Another one, and another one, and another one. An astronomer said, uh-oh, this is not looking so much like the other planets. This is looking like the asteroid belt, a collection of objects that all share the same orbit, but aren't really planets, not what we think of as planets. And as the evidence, as the observations continued to build.
So not the empirical evidence, just the observations. The observations are continuing to build. The predictions and bullshit they're based on, nothing's been validated, but we're still making further predictions, and they're still building on more observations.
Astronomers ended up having to abandon.
This is the point. As the observations, as they get more and more observations, they can adjust the mathematical model so that it is better at predicting. Better at predicting, not describing.
Adam, they've already got it. They've already got an assumption. They've already got what they want, and they're just trying to make everything match, and they're doing it by changing the maths every time something new is there, correct?
That would be, yeah, what that guy's describing, yeah.
Well, that's no different than Eratosthenes. He's assuming the Earth to be a globe when he puts the stick out and sees a shadow, which is an angle, which you could only get from a flat baseline. And then he says the reason it's different over there than here, 500 or 5,000 stadia away, is because the ground is curved. Why'd you assume the ground was curved? So what they're doing here is they're assuming everything in the heliocentric model, and then they just mathematically have to match everything. So 13 million miles away? No, it's 93 million now, because it's got to match. Oh, why? Because the R value.
Eratosthenes had the sun at a different distance as well, just so you know.
We got that.
Nation of Pluto as being a planet. It didn't fit. In the same way, we need to abandon the scientific model. It doesn't fit.
No, you need to abandon your pseudoscience model because it doesn't fit. But it's got nothing to do with science.
Instead, embrace the cycle of scientific thinking.
What, your cycle of observing things, having a little question about them, then coming up with a prediction, and then following that process through without validating anything ever? That's what led you to this model that you said you should abandon.
You don't have to be an expert to do science.
This isn't doing science, and it didn't result in anything other than a model you say is wrong and should be rejected.
You don't have to know everything to answer your kids' questions about science.
Your kids' questions aren't about science, and if you knew what science was, you'd be able to tell your kids that their questions weren't scientific. But I doubt you'd be able to tell them why the sky is blue. You've got your scattering explanation, but that makes all of your orbital assumptions also. It's just a what is question, though. It's not science.
Even if the answer is, I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, because if you ask the kids to engage in that process of making an observation, then coming up with a little explanation, you could basically incorporate whatever the hell they say into science, couldn't you? Because what they think is very important after they've made an observation. I mean, based on what they think at 7 or 8 or 5, you could make further predictions and call those science. What an absolute joke.
Observe. Explain.
Just observe and explain. Yep, that's not science. The explanation for what caused what would be elucidated upon variation of the thing that you thought would cause it and put into a scientific prediction alongside a zero difference result prediction called a null hypothesis. Your observe and declare is absolute garbage and benefits nobody.
Predict. That's
Just
enough.
on,
It's good
Nathan,
enough.
if A, then B would be my null would be, if A, then I don't know. That's what he's just described exactly why he doesn't understand the scientific method there. If it's not what it turns out to be, then I can say, I don't know. And you've not done, then your experiment is invalid because you have come respectfully to Jeren, to a Jerenism conclusion. I don't know. What does that mean? It means your experiment were shit in the first place. You never set it up empirically to give you a definitive outcome. Yeah, even as disappointing as that null can be, it's definitive. Whereas this guy is saying, if my quasi-experiment doesn't work out how I predicted, then I can categorically state, I don't know. Wow.
Yeah, the difference with a real experiment is you do know in both instances. You've proven something. You've validated something. You either validate that A caused B, because that's your prediction. Your scientific prediction said A would cause B. It's called the alternative hypothesis. Your scientific prediction also included a statement that A won't cause B. So then you vary A and one or other's proven. And like Adam says, how disappointing. I didn't validate my alternative and instead validated and proved my null. I'd have much preferred to have found the cause of this effect I'm studying. However, let's rejoice in the fact we still can prove this won't cause that. Because we tried to cause it with it and it didn't. We proved our null. It did not cause it. That's proof. Are you saying, oh, well, at the end of my process, when I've got my wishful thinking, aka scientific thinking cycle, that I just don't know. I don't know. I'll just ask my 7-year-old, see what they think. That's the end of your process. Ask your kids what they think. Oh my God.
Science is back, baby.
Science is back, baby. If you don't know at the end of the process, just ask your kids and see what they think. Science.
Together, as parents, as educators, and as scientists, we can prepare our kids, our students, our schools, and our country for the challenges of the 21st century and beyond, if we can learn to think differently about science.
No, that'll hold everybody back. You getting kids to take this on board and utilise it will never, ever, ever result in anything practically useful ever. Now, I challenge every member of the audience to find me one solitude example where this process has in any way, shape, or form offered any tangible benefit to humanity whatsoever.
Over time.
I can
Thank
get
you
one.
very much.
Garbage. That's it. Thank you, 10th. That induced a lot of passion. Any last remarks before I ask people to stay tuned?
Yeah, I said I can give you one.
Go ahead.
It was science fiction. Science fiction movies. That's what we got from them. Hollywood gave us science fiction movies based off of their paradigm. So that's what we got.
Then if I'm going to class entertainment in the cinema as a tangible benefit to humanity.
It's handy if you have nothing to do when you find a good movie, I suppose.
Escaping reality. Anyway, shout out to Original D Rose, who says, hopefully those most needing to hear this listened. I don't know. I'm appealing to everybody in the audience with over 100 people watching. I'm very grateful you're all here. However, with that, I'm going to say, if you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Programming streams, then stay tuned, as there will be an after show to follow. Unfortunately, if you are watching this live, this is where we bid you farewell. So another massive thank you to all of you. Smashed the super chat, liked, commented, shared, subscribed, joined as a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member, gifted memberships, hit me up on PayPal, and all that good stuff. Obviously, another massive thank you to today's Discord and G Plus panels for making today's live show possible. There is one thing that I've forgotten to do that I'm going to now do so that it's not neglected in this live stream. So this TED Talks video, although it's pretty generic in terms of who we'll be appealing to, please let them know by way of a comment immediately on their video that at Nathan Oakley 1980 sent me, and maybe leave them a little message about how we responded to their claims in regards to science and the scientific method. Hopefully, were TED Talks YouTube channel with their 36 million subscribers to respond, they would also respond in kind by putting a link to at Nathan Oakley 1980's videos so that I can receive some algorithmic love where typically it is not forthcoming from YouTube. So please let them know. You can see there's a link going by in the YouTube chat. I just forgot to do this at the beginning of the video. But yes, please let this videographer know at Nathan Oakley 1980 sent me. Stay tuned if you're watching on an after show. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.
What a day! What a lovely day!